Hey everyone, welcome to our second episode of interviews with XA alumni. These are students who passed through our student ministry and now they're full-grown adults. They have their own careers. They're some of them are married, some of them, well, none of y'all have kids yet, right? Okay, so none of these people have kids just yet. So I started saying that and I was like, wait a minute, I needed to look at my audience here. But we're glad to we have Ashlee, we have Andrea, we have Kathryn, and we have Kelsey, and they're all here with us, all former XA alumni, and I'm excited that they're here with us today. So, girls, all at one time, how are you doing?
Good.
Good, good. All right, everybody's surviving the pandemic so far?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You guys are troopers. You can do it all. All right, so here's what I want you to do real quick. Just introduce yourself. Tell us maybe, what you're doing right now. If you're married, and introduce your spouse, whatever, what your job's going on, and then tell us who your parents are. So Kelsey, on my screen, you're top left, so I'm just going to tell you to go first. So we'll go Kelsey, Kathryn, Andrea, Ashlee. All right, go.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I'm Kelsey and I live in Plano, Texas, so didn't move too far, and I work in medical communications right now. And my parents are Debbie and Alan Cooper.
Perfect. Kathryn.
Perfect. My name's Kathryn. I live in Stephenville, Texas, which is where I went to school here, and I'm now working at First Baptist Church in Stephenville with the college ministry. And my parents are Linda and Wally Jones.
All
So
right.
shout out to them.
Shout out to the Jones. Andrea.
Okay, my name's Andrea Larimore. I've been married for 3 years to Drew Larimore. Let's see, I work for my dad's company, actually, KBI, and I live in Prosper, Texas, and my parents are David and Karen Smith.
Awesome. And Ashlee.
Hi, I'm Ashlee, and I live in Dallas, and I work for Merit Energy doing oil and gas accounting, and then my parents are Tim and Nancy Woldridge.
Cool. Well, like I said earlier, the whole point of this is just to let other parents who have teenagers and kids who are younger just to continue to do well, because obviously you guys, I know you. Some people out there watching may not know you, but I know that you guys have grown up to be awesome young women for the Lord, and so and a big part of that, not all of it, but a big part of that is because of your parents. So, if you will, do me a favor and just kind of, as brief as you can, just kind of share when you came to know the Lord, and just kind of what role did your parents play in that? Okay, and we'll start the other way around. Ashlee, we'll let you go first. How old were you when you came to know the Lord, and what role did your parents play in your spiritual walk, in your journey?
Mm-hmm. So I was actually in 6th grade when I came to know the Lord, and I grew up in the church, so had known the gospel before that. I just don't think it really clicked until then. And they played a huge role in that because they brought me to church every single Sunday, and it was, I guess, forced, if you would say that, but it never felt like that. It was just like what we did as a family. And I saw them with their commitment to church, and I saw them with a commitment to their community, and then it just made me kind of fall in that line. I feel like this was my community growing up, and so they kind of helped me form that by bringing me to church and helping me make friends. I came to know the Lord in 6th grade. I really felt like I started following him in the youth group, probably like sophomore year, going into the big high school. So I would say that's when I really started doing that. And so just their commitment to coming every Sunday, and like, this is how we live our lives. That's how I'd say they played a huge role.
Cool. Andrea?
I think all our stories are going to be kind of similar, but same for me is I feel like I knew the gospel, I knew all the right things I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't decide for myself that I wanted to follow until middle school. But yeah, your parents, they just give you that foundation of bringing you to church every Sunday and conversations at home, and you see how they live their life. So when you are ready to make that decision, you already have like a good example. You already have the gospel down,
Right.
So I think they definitely played a huge role in all of our lives.
Good. Kathryn?
Yeah, so similar to them, also grew up in church, and So I realized the importance of going to church because our parents always took us to church, me and my brothers. And so it wasn't till fourth grade I kind of had that realization of this is more than just attending church. It's about having a personal relationship with Jesus. So I gave my life to the Lord in fourth grade. And I guess the role my parents played in that was they were believers themselves. So I knew my parents had a relationship with the Lord, and that's something we talked about in our house, and they took us to church so that we could also get fed there. So,
Kelsey?
So I came to know the Lord and hear the gospel in second grade at VBS, but kind of like everyone else, didn't really click about what it meant to surrender to Christ until seventh grade at our church's D now. And like everyone else, I grew up in church. My parents always took me to church. I remember my mom laying in bed with me and like reading devotionals to me when I was really, really young, and just always had that example from my whole family, really, of following Christ and just being committed to Him.
Good. So it seems the majority is that everyone's parents brought them to church, took them to church. It really wasn't an option per se. But I think the cool thing, full disclosure to those of you who are watching, all four of these girls are like the bestest of friends. And so that's why they're all here together and doing this together. And I'm excited about that because they've lived out community when they were in youth, and they continue to do that now as adults. But so let me ask you this. Why do you think, and I don't care who answers this one, why do you think your faith is you're still strong in your faith right now? Because, so many of people your age, the 20 somethings are running from it, or it just seems like faith is they want to get away from it because it seems to be so many rules, so many just backwards to what culture says. Why do you think you've been able to kind of stay consistent, stay strong in your faith?
I think I can start. A big one, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but is community. And so like growing up in the church, like you said, like these are my best friends and we all had each other. So we had each other to depend on when other people were doing things that we knew we weren't supposed to be doing. We had community that wasn't doing those things and that was following Jesus. But you leave the house and after high school, so that kind of changes. But as soon as I left and went to college, I knew to go and find that community. So I think that's something that like I was taught really well just growing up at our church, and something my parents set the example for because they had that community was I knew if I didn't go and find community, then there's a good chance my faith could crumble too. So I would say community is the main thing in that, at least for me.
Good. Someone else?
I can go. I think just growing up in church and knowing Christ from a young age allows you to walk through like all of your teenage years with Christ and having Him lead you and go through all of your struggles with you, and having that hope in Him and having this community. And so I just think starting from a young age, I saw my need for Christ, and just depending on Him every day. I can't imagine walking away from that and even really knowing what to do with myself or how to live my life.
Sure. Let me ask you this. So back to your parents here. What do you think give me a couple of things, and Ashlee, I'll let you go first here. What are a couple of things that your parents did that you would say, man, this was they were so good to do this for me, or to make this a priority for me? Talk to me about a couple of things that they did raising you right.
Yeah, I think they did a great job about doing things one-on-one with me, just kind of like building a really strong relationship. Like my dad would take me on daddy-daughter dates. We'd go to Allen Cafe and get breakfast. My mom and I would go to Starbucks. And so things like that really built a good foundation for then like the rest of my life. Like since I trusted them and I liked to spend time with them, then it was easy to be honest about, hey, here are some thoughts I have, or like here are questions I have about faith, or like this situation. Just I think they did that really well. And then another thing, just in regards to faith, I feel like they modeled an example of taking notes in church, and like, oh, I want to do that. Or like, I see what it's like to be committed and to be focused, and to kind of be engaged in church, and to be engaged with a small group in Sunday school, and just at home seeing them, like coming down the stairs and see my mom reading her Bible. Like, oh, here are things that are an example for me to follow. Yeah, I think they did those.
Good.
Well.
Good. Kathryn, what would you say some of the things your parents did right?
One thing I thought of specifically as Ashlee was talking was my parents were very open in the house about their faith. So it wasn't something that's like, oh, we'd go to church and we do that, but these are things we do at our house too. So I remember before, so my dad works, he has his office in our backyard, and we would go say bye to him going to school, and his Bible was always sitting out. So we saw that that's something he was reading. Before we went to bed, we always said prayers with our parents. So just daily disciplines, they modeled those for us in the home every single day.
Good. Andrea?
Something I really appreciate about my parents that I think I appreciate the more I get older is they had their priorities right, as far as I felt like they cared about me and they supported me as a person in my walk with Christ, not just worldly successes. Their definition of success was different. And I mean, I remember being in classes in Allen, and a kid got a 99 instead of 100, and they were crying because their parents are going to kill them. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad. My parents never put that kind of pressure on me, but they did care about my walk with Christ, the kind of friends I had. That's the time you learn what you're good at and what you're not. But they never made me feel pressured to have all these worldly accomplishments, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think I really appreciate that.
Totally. Kelsey?
Similar to Kathryn, just the daily disciplines of seeing that your parents are reading the Bible and praying and going to church, and they have their own community too. I think about how when we first started going to First Baptist Allen, my mom kept saying, Kelsey, you should have Ashlee over. You should really be friends with Ashlee. And looking back, how that really changed my life, because getting to know Ashlee, I met Kathryn and Andrea, and and then just have the best community and people to walk with.
What's a life lesson? And so full disclosure, I do this on every interview. I give everyone who's on the interview the questions a little bit ahead of time. But what's a lesson that is kind of stuck with you? Maybe it was a saying that your mom or dad said, or something they just kind of you just heard it, or you saw it all the time, and now it's a part of who you are. It's what you do now. Kathryn, I'll let you go first.
Okay, so I called my brothers before this interview, and they all had the exact same answer to this question. So something big time that I think we all learned from our parents, which is very practical, is how to manage money. So from a really young age, we would get an allowance, and even our $1 we would get when I was 4 or 5, I don't even remember. We knew oh, we're supposed to tithe that dollar. So from a young age, our parents taught us the importance of tithing and giving back to the church. And then just as we got older, learning how to manage more money as we started working or whatever that was. I think that's a big thing that our parents taught us, was how to manage our money, and whether it's a lot or a little, but how to use our money to glorify God. So I think that's a huge thing that our parents definitely taught us.
Cool. Kelsey, how about you? What was one thing that kind of drilled into you?
It wasn't a particular saying, but both of my parents are just very hardworking people, and they're also very humble, and it's just ingrained to me that you're not entitled to anything. You work to earn your salary, and you work hard, and you're working for the Lord. You're not working for your own personal gain.
Good. Ashlee?
Yeah, I was going to talk about my mom and how she would sing about anything. And so she just had a very joyful heart. And so we'd be in the car and she'd be singing, or, waking up, we had a wake up song and a like, we're going to church song. My dad had to go into church song actually, but just having joy in everything and pointing it back to Christ of like, oh, growing up, sometimes things are annoying of like, oh, a life lesson is made out of everything. But I can see like, oh, they talked about it, whether we were in the store, in a restaurant, or at home. And a lot of times it was in a song form too. So
Man, I can't wait to hear some of these songs.
oh yes, John and I can sing them for you.
Okay, we might have to ask for one here later on.
Yeah.
I'll stop recording first.
Okay.
Andrea, how about you? What's something that just kind of ingrained in you because of your parents?
Again, something specific with my mom that actually my grandpa like instilled in her. So it's been passed down, but basically what goes in comes out, and like what you feed your mind is gonna come out in your life. So it was always important to my parents, like what you watch, the kind of music you're listening to, or like now, I mean, social media is huge. And are you spending time in the Word? Is that how you're feeding yourself? Or are you, getting sucked into all the things of the world? And those really do affect you. We're not immune to what you watch and listen to.
Good. Okay, now I'm going to surprise this question because it just came to my mind. I'm realizing here that I want to ask you this. So 4 girls here, talk to me about your relationship with your dad just for a second, and just say what has, and I'll give you time to think about this, but what has been something that your dad did for you, just being a girl and now a young woman? What's been something that you've really looked back and you just, man, I'm so glad Dad did this or has done this or continues to do this for me. Talk about that. And I won't ask anybody since I just sprung that question on you, but whoever gets an answer first, just start talking.
For me, my dad was always very encouraging. Anything growing up in high school, like, I don't know, like a play or something, like he would always give me verbal encouragement, but be very specific on, you did this really well, and try and help me in areas that maybe I need help in. But I don't know, he's very specific with his encouragement, and I think that makes it stick out to you more that, he's really paying attention and investing in you and trying to help you along in life, I guess.
Right. It wasn't just a good job, but it was a, hey, great,
yeah,
this person, that's good.
Yeah.
Something, oh, sorry, Ashlee.
Go ahead.
Something my dad specifically did, well, I'm the only girl, but I wasn't spoiled like the only girl, but I was definitely a little bit favored by my father, I would say. But something growing up, and Ashlee was actually a part of this too, but I was in part of a thing called Indian Princesses, if you all are familiar. But basically it was like I don't know, we went camping with our dad, basically is what it was, with our friends and their dad. So something cool about that was just like the amount of time my dad would spend with me, but not just with me, but with my friends too, and with their dads. So just kind of having that community of me getting to spend time with my dad. And then another thing was like anytime we needed something, like whether it was with our cars or different things in life, like my dad was very intentional of not just like, let's just take it to get it done, but he'll like sit there and like spend an entire Saturday teaching us how to fix something on our car, or going to my brother's soccer games that took the entire weekend, like just spending time doing the things that he knew we cared about and we loved. So
That's cool. Ashlee, you were going to go next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of what both of y'all said. I felt like my dad was very involved in everything I did. Like he was there and watching. But another thing is I feel like my dad was surprisingly like emotionally there, if that makes sense, of things that I feel like, I mean, I went to my mom too, but I mean, oh, my friend, she's moving away and I'm crying. My dad just happened to be there at those moments. And so I think we formed a close bond because guys are not as emotional typically, but he was there for me emotionally a lot of times.
That's good. Kelsey?
I was going to say my dad has always just been my biggest fan and been on my side, and I have a strong inner critic, and he's always the one kind of tell me like, no, you did a great job on this. You did the best that you could. Even to the point where he would embarrass me. I remember one time he came to pick me up from school and I made an A on some test. I don't know what. And he put like A+ in tape on the car windshield for everybody to see. And he would do that about a lot of things. And even though it was embarrassing, I knew that he really cared and he was really proud of me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, enough mushy gushy about our parents. Now, so let's just say you're a teenage, or you can even go younger than that, but just what are some things where you were just like, your parents maybe were a little over the top, or you just kind of slapped your forehead and you're just like, Mom and Dad, why are you doing this? Tell me some of the things where maybe you felt like they were a little over the top.
Okay. Well, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but the singing, that was just at points. Yeah, I don't know if this, so you had sent some questions beforehand, and one of them, I don't know if this is exactly what you're trying to get at, but where could they have eased up, or like what annoyed me at times, but maybe see the wisdom in it later. And I know when I was at Curtis Middle School, we had to play a basketball game in front of the whole school. I don't know why, but I did not want to do that because I was not good at basketball, and I wanted them to let me stay home sick that day. And they made me go and play basketball, and I thought it was the worst thing ever. But I can see how it was just like, be vulnerable, go play, you're a part of the team.
Right.
So maybe making me keep my commitments to things was
Yeah,
a
that's
little bit annoying.
Cool. Okay, we'll jump to that. Let's go, because Ashlee went there, so let's all go there. What is something that, looking back, or when you were in the moment, you were like, this is crazy, Mom and Dad, but now as a 20-something, you look back and you definitely see the wisdom in that now. So Kelsey, what's one for you?
It's not necessarily like about me. They didn't intend it to be about me, but whenever we would go eat at restaurants or go anywhere, my dad was always really intentional about talking to whoever was serving us. And at the time I was so embarrassed by it. I was like, leave them alone, like let them do their job. But he was doing it because he cared about them and he was trying to show like love to them and respect to them. But I did not get that at the time.
Most definitely. Yeah. My kids hate it when I talk to people. Leave them alone. You don't have to say hi to everybody. I'm like, I got too much of my dad in me. That's what he did. Kathryn, how about you? What was something you were just like, you rolled your eyes, but now as a 20-something, you see the wisdom in?
So my parents were extremely strict about movies, like extremely strict on what we watched. Like I'm pretty sure it's called like Plugged In Online was like on my mom's favorites bar on her computer. It's like every movie we were watching, they were looking it up. But I distinctly remember having to miss my friend's birthday party because they were going to watch this movie that I wasn't allowed to watch, and I was just really upset about it.
What was it?
I don't remember. I asked my mom actually before this. She thinks it was the Lizzie McGuire movie, but like I said, extremely strict. I don't think that's wrong in that movie.
I think she shows her tummy in the movie, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
She sneaks out of a hotel.
I don't know.
Yeah, the website probably said nudity, even though it was like the tummy.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was one thing they were like really strict about. But now I know, like Andrea talked about this earlier, what goes in comes out. So they were just protecting us and watching what we saw. And that was something that they could control what we were looking at. And so they did. So yeah, that was one thing that at the time I was like, the worst thing ever. I can't even go to my friend's birthday party, but it's fine.
Yeah. Andrea?
That's tough. Okay, I feel like because we're all girls, we have to talk about this, and maybe I'm the only one, but I remember there being very trendy like outfits or clothing items that everyone was wearing, but I wasn't allowed to wear because of modesty, and in the moment it was so like painful. For some reason it seemed like such a big deal, but now I'm like, thank you, Mom and Dad, for not looking for that. But I think with teenage girls, that's definitely a hard topic.
Oh, I bet. So what would you say now, what would you go back and tell your 16-year-old self? Like if you could go back just somewhere in that time frame in regards to your parents, right? Not just go back and give yourself advice, but when in regards to your parents, what would you go back and say to your 16, 15-year-old self right now? Kathryn.
Okay, I kind of struggled with this question, but I think
Is this the one you told me not to ask you?
yeah, probably.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think like the main thing I would think is my parents are cooler than I thought they were. Like a lot of people love my parents. My parents were very involved in our lives and like very involved at the church. And like sometimes like as a kid, you're like, well, I just don't want my parents to be here right now. But like looking back, I think that just like I love that they were involved and like I'm glad that they were teaching us at church and at school and whatever else it was and were involved in my life in that way. So
Cool. Kelsey?
I would say just like to go back and serve my parents more. They did so much for me, and I definitely had my fair share of just bratty moments and not being thankful and not having the right attitude with them. But I guess especially just like growing up and as they get older, wanting to just look back and see like what could I have done for them better.
Good. Ashlee?
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of what Kathryn said. I think I never minded if they were at church things with me. It was more school things that I was like, oh, there's just so many people out in high school. Like, it's just a lot of like, oh, I don't know if I want them at this thing. But I think just spending more time with them and that like, oh, looking back, I'm glad they went to almost everything. Like, I want them at more things in my life now.
Andrea?
I would say that your parents have a lot more perspective in life than you do. And in the moment, high school seems like all there is, you know, but your parents see beyond that. So they're parenting you for the long term, not just to be cool in high school. And also to maybe give a little less attitude and appreciate all the quality time you're going to give with your parents. Because as soon as you go to college, it's gone, you know, it won't be the same. So
That's funny. So you guys are best buds. So were all of your parents kind of involved in helping raise all of you? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and I think there's wisdom in that because like kind of like what you said, we talked about community. I mean, you guys have your community, but I think a community, making sure parents have a community of other parents to kind of talk and go through and help and those kinds of things. So you were most definitely influenced not only by your own parents, but parents of the girls on this call with us, for sure, huh?
we actually take credit for our parents' friendship with each other. So
Very
you're
good.
welcome. Yeah.
So how did this friend tree happen? So who connected who, and how did the four of y'all get to be good buddies?
Ashlee and I were literally in the baby nursery together at church. So
Yeah.
lo and behold.
There's a picture of me and Andrea as babies in the church, and my mom is holding Andrea, and I'm like on the floor, and I feel like that's an accurate picture. I'm on the side, my mom's in the convertible with Andrea, like having fun.
So Andrea, you are Nancy's favorite. Well, that's good. Good to know.
Shout out to Nancy.
Okay, so you two in the baby, and then who came next? Kathryn?
I honestly don't really know. Like, do y'all know? I feel like we all just kind of, Kelsey and I kind of stumbled in all at the same time. Like, I was at the church longer than Kelsey was.
Mm-hmm.
But we all, would y'all say like 5th, 6th grade is when we all just kind of became friends? Probably.
Yeah, I remember meeting Ashlee because we were in, I think, like the 2nd hour Sunday school. And I know Andrea and Kathryn, y'all were in the 1st hour, right? Okay, and so I know Ashlee connected.
Like competing gangs. First hour, second hour. You can't hang with them because they're first hour girls.
But somehow we all connected
Yeah.
through Ashlee and then just hung out all the time.
Cool. All right, let's close it with this last question. It's the last question I gave you guys. And finish the sentence. I'm really thankful to God for my parents because. And Ashlee, I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I wrote something down somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Yeah, I'm just thankful that they are so involved in my life, like they are very encouraging and loving. Like I mentioned, emotionally there, but just like physically there at things too. And always willing for me to just have a phone call and talk the whole time and then be like, oh, gotta go, and not ask them about them. So very selfless. Thankful for them for being selfless.
Kathryn?
I would say the main reason I'm thankful for my parents is because they made the gospel a part of everything we did. So they incorporated that into all parts of our life.
Good. Andrea?
I'm thankful for my parents because they gave me the foundation I needed in life. Like your parents are your foundation. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, for sure. Kelsey?
I'm thankful for my parents because they just showed me a lot of grace and what unconditional love is, and were just so patient with me, especially through those teenage years.
So were you guys difficult teenagers?
Probably. I don't know.
I guess I should ask the parents.
Really
That's
no.
probably the best one, the best question to ask them. Well, I appreciate you girls doing this, and thank you for taking your time to invest in other parents. And any last words that you'd like to say? You'd like to throw your parents under the bus one more time? Anything you wanted to mention? This is your chance, because this is going to go out in the World Wide Web. You guys are too nice.
I'll say something, but it's nothing bad. I just want to say, I guess to anyone who's watching, you go to such a great church and you have amazing leadership, and you and your kids are in really good hands. And I know that, speaking for all my friends, we're so thankful for the foundation that the church set and how they taught us the gospel and taught us how to share the gospel.
Cool.